Well, Magnus Nicolin, you're a Swede running an Australian company in America, and I'm hoping you can give us a unique perspective on what it means to be a global CEO and whether it's different being a CEO in America as to Australia and perhaps Sweden.
Absolutely. I mean, I've lived most of my career outside of my home country, if I can call Sweden that. And yes, it's very different. I mean, I came to the US originally to go to business school, and I figured out that I needed to adapt stylistically to what it took to be successful in the US.
Could you describe that adaptation? What did you have to change?
You sort of need to be a little bit more aggressive. I think Europeans are often a little bit more laid back, and I think in the US you need to portray yourself more aggressively and use the word I a little bit more often than you do in Europe, I think.
Did you learn how to do that at McKinsey?
Not necessarily, a little bit in business school, but then obviously to a degree at McKinsey. But McKinsey was more where you learn how to think and analyze and understand businesses and what makes them tick, and how to get to the bottom of some of the challenges that you would find in any company. So that was the biggest takeaway from McKinsey, I think.
So if American CEOs or American business is more aggressive than Europe and Sweden, how does that compare, do you think, with Australia? I guess you haven't lived in Australia, but you run an Australian company.
Right, and I've been to Australia over the last 15, 20 years on a regular basis. So, and I think I would see the Australian business style, if you will, to be a little bit more American than European, but having a little bit of both. So it's sort of bridging the gap to a degree. But what I do like about American business thinking and generally the culture of America is you make your own fortune. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody will. There's no entitlement. You create your future. So, and I see that in Australia as well. It's a little bit more aggressive, but a little bit of European feeling is still there. So it's a nice combination, I find.
And what's it like running an Australian company from America? I guess most of the operations are global, so
we're a very global company. We have most of our employees in Malaysia and Thailand and Sri Lanka, Mexico, and so forth. Relatively significant operations in Europe, and our headquarters in the US, and our administrative headquarters in Melbourne. So it's we have to be present everywhere, and if there's one thing I've learned in running companies is you really need to be out at the front line all the time.
Do you mean talking to the employees?
Talking to employees, talking to customers, talking to your production staff, and so forth. So the fact that we are spread around the world doesn't really change much. The fact that I have to be in Australia 3 or 4 times a year for investor meetings and so forth is not that different from what I would have done anyway, just because we have significant sales in Australia, and you sort of need to be there meeting with your salespeople and so forth.
So what sort of CEO would you describe yourself as? I noticed in your first CEO position at Ansell, you made a lot of changes quite quickly. I think you took the product lines from 23 down to 5 quite fast.
Right.
So do you regard yourself as a change agent in the way that you run companies?
That's probably true. I'm a little bit impatient. Want to get some serious action fairly quickly. But I also believe in engaging the employees. They really need to be with you on that journey. So there's a lot of communication, a lot of involvement, and initially obviously a lot of listening. What is really going on in this company? What is working? What's not working? I probably asked this question to like 300 or 400 people at Ansell. I asked them, what would you do right now if you were in my shoes? And I got a lot of good ideas, a lot of...
Were the answers very different from each other? Were there lots of different answers, or did you,
lots of different answers,
hear a theme come through?
There are a number of themes, and one of the themes, and one that we've taken to heart, is a lot of people say, we're too slow. We're not the world's largest company, and yet sometimes we behave like we're very large. and we need to get more agile, faster.
So how do you do that? What do you have to do to make a company agile?
Well, a couple of things that we have done. We've delegated a little bit more decision-making authority to the front line. They don't have to ask for permission to do everything and so forth. And that's been really important. The other thing that we've done is change the structure to a global structure based on global business units from the old structure, which was regionally driven. So we had 4 separate regions that essentially drove their own product requirements, and while we had centralized sourcing, they essentially dictated, I want to source this product, and I want this, and I want that. And the problem was we created an enormous amount of complexity in our plants. And we have a large number of fairly important plants. And when you have 4 regions wanting similar but not quite the same thing, you set up your organization to become too complex. So we had far too many SKUs, far too much complexity in our facilities. So by establishing these global business units, defining a clear strategy for each of our business areas, rationalizing the SKUs, putting more focus on globally relevant innovation initiatives, we're able to move forward faster.
Well, just to sum that up, just so I get it clear, you went from being regional to being business unit oriented.
Yep.
And you found that is much more, much simpler, is it?
Yeah, it's conducive to faster decision making. We used to have big review meetings on new product initiatives with 20 people in the room and 20 people on the phone, and everybody wanting to have a viewpoint. Now, with the GBUs in charge, we have 5 people in the room, and we take decisions in 5 minutes instead of 3 hours.
So do you have a different number of direct reports to your predecessor?
It's about the same, but it's a slightly different setup. So I have 4 GBUs and 4 regions, and then a number of functions.
Right. And how do you run the company in terms of where you sit and the meetings you hold? Do you bring everybody to where you're located? Do you have how many kind of meetings of all of the business units do you have?
We have all of my direct reports. I sort of bring together maybe 10 times a year, and we have those meetings in various places around the world. So sometimes in Australia, sometimes in Malaysia, Europe, US, and so forth. And I think that's really important part of the messaging here as well. You cannot just sit back at the head office and have everybody come to you. Since you have to be out there anyway, you might as well have the meeting while you're out with the organization. So that's how we're doing it. And that's a very important part of the kind of style that we need to have and I want to establish in this company.
Ansell is quite a different company to Ansell in many ways. What did you learn there that you're able to apply now?
Well, we did a number of things at Ansell. Ansell, of course, was an office products, office supplies company, and also had a lot of complexity. And as you said in the introduction, we did a lot of cleanup of branding to focus it. So there are a number of similarities. One of the key initiatives was lean management, or Kaizen. So we brought in a Japanese consulting firm called Shinjitsu to help teach all managers in the company, whether they were in marketing or manufacturing or sales, the principles and practices of lean, essentially how you get flow through your facilities based on high quality forecasting of what your customers need, and that all flows back to the raw material source, which allowed us to dramatically improve working capital turns and free up a tremendous amount of cash, and we use some of that cash to make acquisitions.
And why Japanese? Was it? Did you go for a Japanese firm, or was it just happened that that
it's just they're the best. They came out of Toyota, and Toyota, as you know, spearheaded much of the best lean thinking that you see around the world.
So when you got into Ansell and had a look at it, spent some time, spoke to the 300 or 400 people and asked them what they think, what conclusions did you come to about what Ansell needed? Was it a cost issue, or was it a product issue, or what?
Well, in addition to asking people, we also did a lot of analysis as well on competition, what's going on, cost trends, and where the opportunities are for growth and all that kind of stuff, what geographies we want to focus on, what technologies do we need to add and delete, and so forth. So based on all of that data collection and analysis, we then formulated the plan and what we needed to do. And that's essentially the plan that we've been executing against since that time.
Right. So what is it? I mean, could you simply describe the plan, the conclusions you came to?
One of the cornerstones of the plan is to focus on business verticals, as we call it. So within our industrial gloves or hand protection for industry, there are obviously many different industry sectors. So automotive, mining, food or food service, and so forth. And as you can imagine, the kinds of products and even the kinds of strategies needed to win are dramatically different from vertical to vertical. And I think the company had sort of, I guess, adopted a habit of, lowest common denominator, as opposed to having the difference needed to win in each of those sectors. So that's a cornerstone of what we've done, and based on that we established these global business units. So within each global business unit there will be a certain number of verticals that they will focus on. And as part of this we also broke out separately what we call new verticals, which are a number of verticals where we have a very modest market position. Where we needed more significant investment, really think through how to win from a position of weakness. Whereas in some of the other verticals, we had already a leading position.
Yeah.
Might have had a global market share of 20%. Whereas in some of the others, we just needed to start from scratch. We were then able to staff that up, this new verticals group, with people who are particularly good at building businesses from the ground up. Mm-hmm. Whereas some of the other GBUs were staffed with people who are really good at marshalling the strong points that we have and build on them and so forth.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
One of the things that struck me as I researched you was how little you paid. I mean, perhaps because it's an Australian company, right, but you paid a lot less than American CEOs. Is that difficult?
No, it's not difficult. I think we have a fairly interesting compensation set up with base and bonus and long-term bonuses and so forth. But obviously I'm paid to deliver value, and that's the mission we're on. And in my experience, compensation takes care of itself if you deliver value. So,
thanks for joining us, Magnus.
Thank you.